They say grief changes you. What they don't tell you is that it can also make you dangerous. My name is Maria, and 3 years ago I buried my husband Lance after a drunk driver took him from me on a Tuesday morning. He was 34. We'd been married for 6 years, together for 8, and I thought I knew what forever looked like. I was wrong about a lot of things back then. The Lance Wallace Foundation has awarded scholarships to 47 young women this year alone, I said into my phone, pacing around my office. The reporter on the other end was doing a feel-good piece about local non-profits. These are brilliant minds who might never have had the chance to pursue engineering, computer science or medicine without... Mrs. Wallace? My assistant Savannah poked her head through the door, her usually bright expression clouded with concern. Your mother called. She says it's urgent. I felt my stomach drop. My mother Beatrice only used the word urgent when she wanted something expensive or when someone had crossed the family. Given that our annual gala was next week, I suspected both. I'll call you back, I told the reporter, and hung up. What did she say exactly? Family emergency. Your father wants to see you immediately. Savannah's voice dropped to a whisper. She sounded different, scared maybe. I grabbed my purse and keys. The drive to my parents' house in the hills usually took 20 minutes, but I made it in 15. Their sprawling estate looked the same as always, perfectly manicured, intimidatingly expensive, and cold as a mausoleum. Tessa's car was in the driveway. My younger sister's presence meant this wasn't about foundation business. It was about family business, which was infinitely worse. I found them in my father's study, the same room where he'd conducted his business meetings throughout my childhood, the same room where he'd told me Lance wasn't good enough for our family, the same room where he'd later demanded I use my husband's death as a networking opportunity. Tessa sat in the leather chair by the window, her designer dress wrinkled, her usually perfect blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Maria. My mother Beatrice rose from her chair with the grace of a woman who'd spent decades perfecting her public persona. Thank you for coming so quickly. What's wrong? I looked between my parents and my sister. Is someone hurt? Sit down, sweetheart. My father Reginald didn't look up from the papers spread across his mahogany desk. At 60, he still commanded every room he entered, but today something felt different, desperate. I'll stand, thanks. What's this about? Tessa finally looked at me and I saw tears in her eyes. Maria, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to get this bad. For what to get this bad? My father cleared his throat. Tessa has found herself in a difficult financial situation. She owes some rather unsavoury people a considerable amount of money. How much? I asked, though I already knew I didn't want to hear the answer. $300,000. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. I stared at my sister. 300,000? Tessa, what the hell? It started small, she said quickly. Just poker games with friends, then the casino, then online betting. I kept thinking I could win it back, but you couldn't. I turned to my parents. And you want me to help her? We want you to do your duty as her sister, my mother said, her voice sharp with disapproval. Family comes first, Maria, always. My duty, I laughed, but there was no humour in it. My duty is to the 47 women who are going to change the world because of Lance's foundation. My duty is to honour my husband's memory, not bail out my sister's gambling addiction. The foundation has plenty of money, my father said, more than enough to help Tessa and continue its work. That money isn't mine to give away. It belongs to the women we're trying to help. It belongs to this family, my mother snapped. That foundation exists because of Wallace money, and don't you forget it. I felt something cold settle in my chest. What's that supposed to mean? My father finally looked up from his papers, and his eyes were harder than I'd ever seen them. It means your charity has lived long enough. The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked at Tessa, who was crying openly now, then at my parents, who were watching me with the calculating expressions of people who'd already decided my fate. You're serious, I whispered. You actually want me to destroy Lance's legacy to pay for her gambling debts. We want you to save your sister, my mother said, before these people decide to collect in other ways. I backed toward the door, my heart pounding. I need to think about this. There's nothing to think about, my father said. The gala is next week. You'll announce your decision then. And if I refuse? He smiled, and it was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. Then we'll make the decision for you. I didn't sleep that night. By morning I'd convinced myself that maybe I'd misunderstood, that my parents couldn't possibly be threatening to destroy everything Lance and I had built together. I was wrong about that too. You look terrible, Savannah said when I walked into the foundation office at 7 a.m., 2 hours earlier than usual. Thanks, that's exactly what every woman wants to hear. I mean it, Maria. What happened yesterday? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Family meeting at 10 a.m. Don't be late. I have to go back, I told Savannah. Can you handle the morning calls? Of course, but I'll explain later, maybe. The second family meeting was worse than the first. This time they'd prepared. We've spoken to the board, my father announced as soon as I walked into his study. Stella agrees that you've been under tremendous stress since Lance's death. Stella said what? Stella was one of our most prominent board members, someone I'd considered an ally. She's concerned about your judgment, my mother added. We all are. Tessa looked up from the same chair she'd occupied yesterday. Maria, please, these people aren't playing games. They've already been to my apartment twice. What people exactly? Does it matter? My father snapped. Your sister is in danger, and you're worried about paperwork. I'm worried about the law, Dad. The foundation has legal obligations. I can't just write a check for $300,000 because Tessa made bad choices. Bad choices? My mother's voice rose. She's your sister. And Lance was my husband. The foundation is his legacy, not the family piggy bank. Lance is dead, my father said coldly. Tessa is alive and needs our help. The words hit me like a slap. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth. You've been living in a fantasy, Maria, playing charity worker with money that doesn't belong to you. That money was donated by people who believe in our mission. That money came from this family's investments, from my business success, from the Wallace name and reputation. Something in his tone made me pause. What business success? Don't be naive, sweetheart. Every dollar in that foundation can be traced back to Wallace Enterprises, to my partnerships and deals over the years. What partnerships? My mother shot my father a warning look, but he ignored her. The kind that built this family's fortune. The kind that gave you the luxury of playing philanthropist instead of getting a real job. A real job? I run a non-profit that's changed dozens of lives. You run a hobby, he interrupted, and hobbies end when family needs come first. Tessa finally spoke up. Maybe there's another way. Maybe I could get a loan. From who? My mother demanded. Your credit is destroyed. No bank will touch you. What about rehab? I suggested. What about actually dealing with the gambling addiction instead of just throwing money at it? There's no time for that, my father said. These people want their money now. Then maybe Tessa should have thought about that before she... Before she what? Tessa stood up, her face flushed. Before she got sick, before she developed an addiction, you think I wanted this? I think you've never faced real consequences for anything in your life. That's enough, my mother said sharply. Both of you. No, it's not enough. I turned to face all three of them. You want me to steal from a charity. You want me to betray every donor who trusted us with their money. You want me to destroy Lance's memory so Tessa can keep gambling. We want you to save your sister's life, my father said, by destroying mine. Your life? He laughed. Maria, you don't have a life. You have a shrine to a dead man and a charity that lets you feel important. That's not living. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Get out of my way. Where are you going? Home, away from here, away from all of you. The gala is in 6 days, my mother called after me. You'll announce your decision then, or we'll announce it for you. I stopped at the door. What's that supposed to mean? It means, my father said, that if you won't step down voluntarily, we'll call for a vote of no confidence. Stella's already agreed to second the motion. You can't do that. We're board members, Maria. We absolutely can do that. I drove straight to Savannah's apartment, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. She took one look at my face and poured 2 large glasses of wine. They want to destroy the foundation. I told her everything. The gambling debts, the threats, the board manipulation. They can't actually remove you, can they? If they have enough votes, yes, and they seem confident they do. Savannah was quiet for a long moment. Maria, can I ask you something? Sure. Where did your family's money actually come from? I mean, your father's always been vague about his business background. I stared at her. Why do you ask? Because in 3 years of running this foundation, I've never been able to trace the original seed funding back to any legitimate Wallace business. It just appeared. Something cold settled in my stomach. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe it's time we found out exactly where our money came from before we decide whether it's worth fighting for. I set down my wine glass. You think there's something wrong with the foundation's funding? I think, Savannah said carefully, that your parents are awfully confident they can take it away from you, and I'm wondering why. That night I lay awake thinking about Lance, about the foundation, about the strange look in my father's eyes when he'd mentioned his partnerships. I was going to find out the truth, even if it destroyed everything. Jeffrey, I need you to pull every financial record we have on the foundation's original funding. Our lawyer looked up from his coffee, surprised by my early morning ambush in his office. Maria, it's 7:30 a.m. What's going on? My family is trying to destroy the foundation. I need to know exactly where our money came from. Okay, slow down. Jeffrey gestured to the chair across from his desk. Tell me what happened. I explained everything. Tessa's debts, my parents' ultimatum, the threatened board vote. Jeffrey's expression grew darker with each detail. They can't just vote you out without cause, he said finally. They seem to think they can, and they're acting like they own the foundation's assets. Well, legally speaking, they don't. The foundation is a separate entity. Jeffrey. I leaned forward. Where did the original $2 million come from? The seed money that started everything? He frowned. From your father's business investments, according to the paperwork. Why? What business investments exactly? I'd have to check the files, but I believe it was from the sale of his partnership in some consulting firm. Maria, why are you asking? Because something doesn't add up. My father's been vague about his business background for years, and now he's talking about the foundation money like it belongs to him personally. Jeffrey was quiet for a moment. You want me to dig deeper? I want you to find out everything. Every transaction, every source, every detail about where that money came from. That could take days. We have 5 days until the gala. Get started. While Jeffrey worked on the financial records, I drove to my parents' house, not to see them, to see Tessa alone. I found her in the garden, smoking a cigarette with shaking hands. Since when do you smoke? She jumped, dropping the cigarette. Maria, I didn't hear you come in. Mum and Dad aren't here. Country club, some charity luncheon. She laughed bitterly. Ironic, right? Tessa, I need you to tell me exactly who you owe money to. Why does it matter? Because I'm trying to understand how we got here. $300,000 doesn't happen overnight. She sat down on the garden bench, looking smaller than I'd seen her since we were kids. It started 2 years ago, just friendly poker games with some people I met at the casino. What people? Rich people, bored people, the kind who bet more on one hand than most people make in a month. And you kept playing because I was winning at first, a lot. Enough to pay off my credit cards, enough to buy that car, enough to feel like I was finally good at something. But then you started losing. Not right away. It was gradual. A bad night here, a worse night there. But I kept thinking I could win it back. That's how it works, Maria. That's how they get you. Who's they? Tessa looked away. The people who run the games, they're not exactly legitimate business people. You're talking about criminals. I'm talking about people who don't accept "I'll pay you next week" as an answer. My phone buzzed. A text from Jeffrey. Found something. Come back now. I have to go, I told Tessa. But we're not done talking about this. Maria, wait. She grabbed my arm. I know you hate me right now. I don't hate you. I hate what you've done. There's something else. Something I haven't told Mum and Dad. What? The people I owe money to. They know about the foundation. They know about you. Ice ran through my veins. What do you mean they know about me? They've been asking questions about your husband, about the foundation's assets, about whether you'd be willing to help family. You told them about Lance? I didn't tell them anything, but they seemed to know everything anyway. I stared at her. Tessa, exactly who are these people? I don't know their real names, but Maria, I think they've been planning this. I think they targeted me because of you. I was back in Jeffrey's office within 20 minutes, my mind racing. What did you find? Jeffrey spread papers across his desk. The original $2 million came from the dissolution of Wallace Hartley Consulting in 1998, your father's partnership with someone named Wilfred. My blood turned to ice. Wilfred who? Wilfred Wallace, no relation to your family despite the name. Jeffrey looked up. Maria, you've gone completely white. Wilfred Wallace was Lance's father. What? Lance's father was Wilfred Wallace. He died 5 years ago, right before Lance and I got married. Jeffrey stared at me. Your father was in business with your husband's father? Lance never mentioned any business partnership. He said his father died broke, that there was no inheritance, no family money. According to these records, the partnership was dissolved after allegations of financial impropriety. Wilfred filed a complaint claiming your father had embezzled funds. What happened to the complaint? It was dropped. Wilfred died shortly after filing it. I sank into the chair. Jeffrey, are you telling me that the foundation, Lance's foundation, was built with money stolen from Lance's father? I'm telling you that's what it looks like, but Maria, there's more. More? The timing of everything. Your father's sudden wealth, Wilfred's death, even your meeting Lance. It all happened within a very short time frame. What are you suggesting? Jeffrey hesitated. I'm suggesting that maybe your marriage wasn't as coincidental as you thought, and maybe your family's current desperation isn't just about Tessa's gambling debts. My phone rang. My mother's name appeared on the screen. Don't answer it, Jeffrey said. But I was already picking up. Hello, Mum. Maria, darling, we need to talk. There's been a development with Tessa's situation. What kind of development? The kind that means we're out of time. The gala is in 4 days and decisions need to be made tonight. I'm not ready to make any decisions. Then we'll make them for you. Family meeting at 8 p.m. Don't be late. She hung up before I could respond. Jeffrey was watching me carefully. What are you going to do? I'm going to find out the truth, all of it. And then I looked at the papers scattered across his desk, evidence of lies, theft, and betrayal spanning decades. Then I'm going to burn it all down. The emergency board meeting was called for 6 p.m., 2 hours before my parents' family meeting. I walked into the foundation's conference room to find 5 of our 7 board members already seated around the polished oak table. My parents sat at the far end like judges. Stella avoided my eyes. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, my father began, as if he were chairing the meeting instead of me. Actually, Reginald, I called this meeting. I took my seat at the head of the table. As director of the foundation? Maria, my mother's voice was honey over steel. We're all concerned about you. The stress of running the foundation, the upcoming gala, your sister's situation. Let's cut the bullshit, Mom. You want to vote me out so you can raid the foundation's accounts. Gasps around the table. Stella finally looked at me, her face flushed. That's not what this is about, Stella said quietly. Maria, you've been erratic lately. Missing meetings, making decisions without board approval. What meetings have I missed? The budget review last month. I was in the hospital with food poisoning. I sent Savannah with my notes. The donor appreciation dinner. My husband's death anniversary. I told everyone weeks in advance. Board member James cleared his throat. Maria, perhaps we should discuss this privately. No. My father's voice cut through the room. This needs to be addressed now, before the gala. Maria, you're not well. Everyone can see it. I'm not well, I laughed, or I'm not compliant. You're obsessed with Lance's memory to an unhealthy degree, my mother said. The foundation has become a shrine instead of a functioning charity. We've awarded 47 scholarships this year alone. How is that not functioning? Because you refuse to consider the bigger picture, my father said. This family has needs. This family has wants. There's a difference. Stella spoke up. Maria, if you would just consider taking a temporary leave of absence. So you can loot the accounts while I'm gone? So you can get the help you need, my mother finished. I looked around the table. How many of you have they gotten to? Silence. James? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Maria, maybe some time away would be good for you. Patricia? Our newest board member shifted uncomfortably. The foundation's reputation is important. If there are questions about leadership stability, there are no questions about leadership stability. There are questions about whether my parents can steal charity money to pay my sister's gambling debts. That's enough, my father snapped. I move for a vote of no confidence in Maria's leadership. I second, Stella whispered. All in favour? 4 hands went up. Mine and Savannah's stayed down. Board member David was absent. Motion carries, my father announced. Maria, you're hereby suspended as director pending a full review. You can't do this. We just did. My mother smiled. Stella will serve as interim director. I stood up slowly. Stella, do you know where the foundation's original funding came from? She frowned. From your father's business investments. From money he embezzled from his business partner, Lance's father. The room went dead silent. That's a serious accusation, James said. It's a documented fact. Geoffrey has the records. You're lying, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Then you won't mind if we have an independent audit of the foundation's finances. There's no need for an audit, my mother said quickly. There's every need, especially if you're planning to make major financial decisions as interim leadership. I walked to the door, then turned back. The gala is in 4 days. By then, everyone will know the truth about this family and this foundation. Maria, wait, Stella called after me, but I was already gone. I found Tessa waiting in my car in the parking lot. How did you? I've been calling you for an hour. Savannah told me where you were. She looked terrible, pale, shaking, dark circles under her eyes. Maria, we need to talk. I'm done talking. I'm done with all of you. Those people I owe money to. They're not just criminals. They're connected to Dad's old business. I stopped trying to start the car. What? I did some digging after our conversation. The poker games, the people who run them, they're connected to Wilfred's old company, the one Dad supposedly bought out. That's impossible. Wilfred died 5 years ago. But his associates didn't. Maria, I think this whole thing was planned. My gambling addiction, the debts, the pressure on you. I think they've been setting this up for years. Why would they do that? Because Dad didn't just embezzle from Wilfred. He destroyed him. Wilfred lost everything. His business, his reputation, his health. He died broke and disgraced. Lance never told me any of this. Maybe Lance didn't know, or maybe he was protecting you. I stared at my sister. Tessa, are you saying that these people deliberately got you addicted to gambling? I'm saying they made it very easy for me to lose very large amounts of money very quickly, and now they want it back from the foundation that was built with their stolen money. This is insane. Is it? Think about it, Maria. Dad steals from Wilfred. Wilfred dies. And suddenly you're married to Wilfred's son and running a foundation funded by the stolen money. That's a lot of coincidences. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Your sister is right. Time to pay what's owed. See you at the gala." I showed Tessa the message. Her face went white. "They're going to be at the gala?" "Looks like it." "Maria, what are we going to do?" I started the car. "We're going to end this, all of it." "How?" "By telling the truth, at the gala, in front of everyone." "That will destroy the family." "The family destroyed itself years ago. I'm just going to make it public. And the foundation." I thought about Lance, about the 47 young women whose lives had been changed, about the stolen money that had made it all possible. The foundation will survive. It has to. What about me? What about the people I owe? What about them, Tessa? You made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences. They'll kill me. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you gambled away $300,000. She started crying. "I can't fix this alone." "You're not alone, but I'm not going to sacrifice Lance's legacy to save you from your own mistakes." "So what happens now?" I pulled out of the parking lot, my mind already working on what I needed to do before the gala. Now we find out exactly how deep this goes, and then we burn it all down. The Grandview Hotel ballroom sparkled under crystal chandeliers. 300 guests in black tie and evening gowns mingled with champagne glasses, completely unaware that they were about to witness a family's destruction. I stood in the ladies' room, staring at my reflection. The black dress Lance had bought me for our last anniversary. The pearl necklace that had been his grandmother's. I looked like I was dressed for a funeral. Maybe I was. "Maria?" Savannah pushed through the door. "It's time. Your parents are about to start. Are you ready?" She patted the sealed manila envelope in her purse. "Everything's here. Financial records, legal documents, the timeline Jeffrey put together. If you don't use it, I'll use it." I touched the matching envelope in my clutch. "Where's Tessa?" "Haven't seen her, but there are some men here who don't look like typical donors. They're watching the exits." "Wilfred's people." "Probably. Maria, are you sure about this? Once you do this, there's no going back." "There's already no going back." We walked into the ballroom together. The crowd was impressive. Local politicians, business leaders, foundation donors, and scholarship recipients. The kind of people whose opinions could make or break reputations. My parents stood near the stage, holding court with major donors. My father looked distinguished in his tuxedo, every inch the successful businessman. My mother radiated elegance in midnight blue silk. They looked like the perfect philanthropic power couple. They looked like liars. "Maria," Stella approached with a nervous smile. "You look beautiful. I'm so glad you decided to come." "Wouldn't miss it." "About the board meeting." "Don't worry about it, Stella. Everything will work out exactly as it should." She frowned at my tone, but was pulled away by another donor before she could respond. I scanned the room and spotted them. 3 men in expensive suits who didn't belong. They weren't mingling, weren't drinking, weren't pretending to care about scholarships for young women. They were watching me. "Ladies and gentlemen," the event coordinator's voice echoed through the sound system. "Please take your seats. We're ready to begin." I found my assigned table near the front. Savannah sat beside me, Jeffrey on my other side. My parents were at the head table on the stage, along with Stella and the other board members. "Welcome to the 3rd annual Lance Wallace Foundation Gala." My father's voice boomed through the microphone. "I'm Reginald Wallace, and along with my wife Beatrice, I'm honoured to serve on the Foundation's board of directors." Polite applause. I noticed the 3 men had positioned themselves near different exits. "Tonight, we celebrate the incredible young women who have received scholarships this year," my father continued, "but we also celebrate the spirit of renewal and positive change." "Here we go," Jeffrey murmured. "As many of you know, my daughter Maria founded this foundation after the tragic loss of her husband Lance. Her dedication and passion have been truly inspiring." More applause. Several people at my table smiled at me. I smiled back, my hands steady on my napkin. However, the board has recently made some difficult decisions about the Foundation's future leadership. We believe that for the foundation to continue growing and serving our community, we need fresh perspective and renewed energy." The applause was more scattered now. People were starting to sense something was wrong. Therefore, effective immediately, Maria will be stepping back from her role as director to focus on her personal healing and recovery. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I saw confusion on faces, whispered conversations starting at tables throughout the ballroom. Stella Hall, one of our most dedicated board members, will be serving as interim director while we conduct a search for permanent leadership. Stella stood and waved awkwardly. The applause was polite but confused. We're also excited to announce some new initiatives that will expand the Foundation's impact beyond scholarships. We'll be exploring partnerships with established businesses and investment opportunities that will grow our endowment significantly. Translation: "They're going to loot the accounts," Jeffrey whispered. My father smiled broadly. "Now, I'd like to invite Maria to the stage to say a few words about this exciting transition." The spotlight swung to my table. 300 faces turned toward me. The 3 men by the exits straightened. I stood slowly, my heart hammering. This was it. The moment that would either destroy everything or set it free. "Actually, Dad, I have quite a few words to say." I walked toward the stage, my heels clicking on the marble floor. The crowd was dead silent now, sensing drama. My father's smile faltered as I climbed the steps. "Maria, perhaps we should keep this brief." "No, I don't think we should." I took the microphone from his hand. "In fact, I think it's time everyone knew the whole truth about the Lance Wallace Foundation." My mother half rose from her chair. "Maria, what are you doing?" "I'm doing what Lance would have wanted me to do." I looked out at the crowd, at the scholarship recipients in the front rows, at the donors who had trusted us with their money. "I'm telling the truth." "Maria, please," Stella started. "The truth about where our funding really came from, the truth about this family, the truth about why my husband's father died broke and disgraced." My father lunged for the microphone, but I stepped back. Security moved toward the stage, but Jeffrey was already on his feet. The truth about how the Wallace family fortune was built on theft, lies, and the destruction of innocent people. The ballroom erupted, voices raised, chairs scraping, cameras flashing. The 3 men by the exits were moving now, pushing through the crowd. My mother's face had gone completely white. "You don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing." I pulled the envelope from my clutch and held it up. "I'm exposing 25 years of fraud, embezzlement and cover-ups, starting with the money you stole from Wilfred Wallace, my husband's father." The crowd was on its feet now, some people heading for the exits, others pushing closer to the stage. Reporters were shouting questions. The scholarship recipients looked confused and frightened. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said into the microphone, my voice cutting through the chaos. "Let me tell you a story about karma, justice, and what happens when you build your empire on someone else's grave." My father made one more grab for the microphone. "Security! Get her off the stage!" But it was too late. The truth was out, and there was no putting it back. "Security! Stand down!" Jeffrey's voice boomed across the ballroom as he flashed his credentials. "This is a legal matter now." The security guards hesitated, looking between Jeffrey and my father. The crowd pressed closer to the stage, phones recording everything. "Maria, get down from there right now," my mother hissed, but her usual commanding presence had cracked. She looked terrified. "No, Mom, I'm just getting started." I turned back to the microphone. 25 years ago, my father Reginald entered into a business partnership with a man named Wilfred Wallace. Over the course of 2 years, my father systematically embezzled funds from their joint accounts. "This is slander!" my father shouted, but his voice shook. When Wilfred discovered the theft, he filed a complaint with the authorities. But before the investigation could proceed, Wilfred died of a heart attack brought on by the stress of losing everything he'd worked for. A reporter in the front row was frantically taking notes. "Mrs. Wallace, do you have proof of these allegations?" I held up the envelope. Financial records spanning 25 years, bank transfers, forged documents, falsified partnership agreements, all of it. Those are private family documents. My mother stood up, her composure finally shattered. You have no right. I have every right. This foundation was built with stolen money. Every scholarship we've awarded, every life we've changed, it all started with money taken from a man who died believing he'd failed his family. The three men who'd been watching the exits were now pushing through the crowd toward the stage. One of them caught my eye and nodded grimly. But here's the part that really makes this story special, I continued, my voice growing stronger. Wilfred Wallace wasn't just my father's business partner, he was my husband's father. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Several scholarship recipients in the front row looked stunned. That's right. The Lance Wallace Foundation, named for my beloved husband, was funded by money stolen from Lance's own father. The man who died, heartbroken, never knowing that his son would one day marry the daughter of the man who destroyed him. Maria, stop this! Stella was on her feet now. You're destroying everything we've built. Everything we built was a lie, I shot back. Every dollar in our accounts can be traced back to that original theft. We're not philanthropists, we're money launderers. One of the men from the exits had reached the stage. He was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and cold eyes. Miss Wallace, I think we need to talk. And you are? Someone who worked with Wilfred Wallace, someone who's been waiting 25 years for this conversation. My father's face went ashen. Marcus, what are you doing here? Collecting a debt, Reginald, a very old debt. The crowd was in chaos now. Some people were leaving, others were recording everything on their phones. The reporters were having a field day. Ladies and gentlemen, I said into the microphone, meet Marcus Kane, one of Wilfred's former associates, the man who's been orchestrating my sister's gambling debts. Marcus smiled coldly. Your sister made her own choices, Miss Wallace. We just made sure she had plenty of opportunities to make bad ones. You targeted her because of me. We targeted her because justice delayed is not justice denied. Your father stole $2 million from Wilfred Wallace. With interest, that debt is now worth considerably more. How much more? Geoffrey called out from the crowd. $3 million, exactly the amount currently sitting in the foundation's accounts. The pieces clicked into place. You've been planning this for years. We've been waiting for the right moment, when your sister's debts reached critical mass, when your family was desperate enough to raid the foundation, when the stolen money could finally be returned to its rightful owners. The rightful owners are dead, my mother said desperately. Wilfred had other children, Mrs. Wallace, children who grew up in poverty because their father lost everything to your husband's greed. I looked out at the crowd, at the scholarship recipients who were hearing that their futures had been built on stolen money, at the donors who trusted us with their contributions. So what happens now? I asked Marcus. Now you have a choice. Transfer the foundation's assets to us as restitution for the original theft, or we'll take your sister as collateral until the debt is paid. You can't be serious. 300,000 in gambling debts was just the down payment, Miss Wallace. Your sister owes us much more than that now. How much more? $2.7 million. Funny how numbers work out sometimes. The crowd was dead silent now, everyone straining to hear this impossible conversation. And if I refuse? Marcus's smile was ice cold. Then your sister disappears, and we take the foundation's assets anyway through legal channels. We have documentation of the original theft, proof of the money trail, and testimony from witnesses who are still alive. You're talking about extortion. I'm talking about justice. Your father destroyed Wilfred Wallace and his family. Now it's time to pay the price. I looked at my parents, both of them pale and shaking, at Stella, who was staring at me with horror and understanding, at the scholarship recipients who were realizing their dreams might be built on a foundation of lies. There's a third option, I said finally. Which is? I pulled out my phone and held it up. I call the FBI and tell them everything, about the original theft, about your extortion scheme, about all of it. Marcus laughed. And destroy the foundation in the process? Ruin the lives of all these young women who depend on scholarships? I don't think you have it in you. You don't know me very well. I know you've spent 3 years building something beautiful out of something ugly. Are you really willing to destroy it all for the sake of principle? I looked out at the crowd one more time, at the faces of people who'd trusted me, who'd believed in what we were doing. Yes, I said, I am. I dialed 911 right there on stage, holding the phone up to the microphone so everyone could hear. 911, what's your emergency? This is Maria Wallace at the Grandview Hotel. I need to report extortion, fraud, and threats of kidnapping in progress. Marcus stepped back, his confident smile faltering. You're making a mistake. The mistake was made 25 years ago. I'm just cleaning it up. Ma'am, are you in immediate danger? The dispatcher asked. Yes, there are men here threatening to kidnap my sister if I don't transfer $3 million to them. The ballroom erupted again. People were streaming toward the exits now, but the reporters stayed, cameras rolling. Maria, hang up the phone, my father pleaded. We can work this out privately. Privately? Like you work things out privately with Wilfred? Like you've been working things out privately with these criminals for months? Units are en route, the dispatcher said. Stay on the line. Marcus gestured to his associates, who started moving toward the stage exits. But Jeffrey was already there with hotel security. Nobody leaves, Jeffrey announced. This is now a crime scene. You have no authority here, one of Marcus's men said. Actually, I do. Jeffrey held up his phone. I've been recording this entire conversation. Extortion, conspiracy, admission of orchestrating gambling addiction. It's all here. Where's Tessa? I suddenly realized my sister was nowhere to be seen. Marcus smiled coldly. Safe, for now. What does that mean? It means you have about 10 minutes before my associates get impatient. Sirens wailed outside the hotel. The crowd was thinning, but the core group remained, scholarship recipients, major donors, reporters, and my family. Maria, Stella approached the stage, her face pale. I need to tell you something. What? I've been investigating the foundation's finances independently. After your father approached me about the vote of no confidence, something felt wrong. What did you find? The same things you did, but also more. She pulled out her own folder. Your father didn't just steal from Wilfred once. He's been skimming from the foundation for 3 years. What? My mother's voice was barely a whisper. Small amounts, transferred to offshore accounts, about $50,000 a year. That's impossible, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. The transfers are all here, Reginald. Your signature, your authorization codes. Police officers flooded into the ballroom, followed by FBI agents in suits. The lead agent approached the stage. I'm Agent Rodriguez. We got a call about extortion and kidnapping threats. That would be me. I handed him my phone, still connected to 911. And these are the men making the threats. Marcus raised his hands slowly. This is all a misunderstanding, Agent Rodriguez. We're simply trying to recover stolen property. By threatening to kidnap someone. We never threatened— I have it all on recording, Jeffrey interrupted, holding up his phone. Explicit threats against Tessa Wallace if the Foundation's assets aren't transferred. Where is Tessa Wallace now? Agent Rodriguez asked. We don't know, I said. These men claim to have her. Marcus's associate whispered something in his ear. Marcus nodded grimly. She's safe, Marcus said finally. She's at a private facility getting the help she needs for her gambling addiction. What facility? One that specializes in people who owe significant debts to the wrong people. You mean a prison? Agent Rodriguez said flatly. I mean a place where she can't make her situation worse while we work out a payment plan. Agent Rodriguez, I said, I want to make a full confession. Everyone turned to stare at me. Maria, don't! My mother pleaded. The Lance Wallace Foundation was built with money stolen from Wilfred Wallace 25 years ago. My father embezzled $2 million from their business partnership. When Wilfred tried to report it, he died of a heart attack from the stress. Maria, stop talking, Geoffrey warned. No, this ends now, all of it. I turned to Agent Rodriguez. I want immunity in exchange for full cooperation in prosecuting everyone involved. My father for the original theft, these men for extortion and kidnapping, and anyone else who's been part of this conspiracy. You can't be serious, my father said. I'm dead serious. The foundation will be dissolved. The assets will be returned to Wilfred's surviving family members. The scholarship recipients will be protected through a new, clean organisation. What about us? My mother asked, tears streaming down her face. What about you? You've been living off stolen money for 25 years. You tried to force me to steal more to cover Tessa's debts. You voted me out of my own foundation so you could loot it. We're your parents. You're criminals, and I'm done protecting you. Agent Rodriguez was taking notes rapidly. Ms. Wallace, this is a very serious decision. Once you make this statement officially, I understand. I want to do what's right, finally. Marcus stepped forward. Agent Rodriguez, we're willing to cooperate fully in exchange for the return of the stolen funds and assurance that Tessa Wallace receives proper treatment for her addiction. Where is she? Marcus nodded to one of his associates who made a phone call. After a brief conversation, he hung up. She's being released now. She'll be here within the hour. This is insane, my father said. Maria, you're destroying everything we've built. Everything we built was a lie, Dad. Every dollar, every success, every moment of pride. It was all based on money stolen from a man who died broken and betrayed. The scholarship recipients in the front row were crying now. These young women who'd been counting on our support, who'd seen their futures in our mission. What happens to them? I asked Agent Rodriguez, gesturing to the scholarship recipients. That's not really my area, ma'am. I looked out at their faces, hopeful, scared, confused. I promise you, I said into the microphone, every one of you will get the support you were promised, from a clean foundation with clean money built on truth instead of lies. How? One of them called out. Because I'm going to spend the rest of my life making this right. Agent Rodriguez closed his notebook. Ms. Wallace, I think we need to continue this conversation at the Federal Building. I'm ready. As they led me toward the exit, I caught sight of my parents. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. My mother was sobbing into her hands. For the first time in 3 years, I felt free. The federal courthouse was buzzing with reporters when I walked out after giving my testimony. Geoffrey waited by his car, looking exhausted but relieved. How do you feel? He asked as we drove away from the chaos. Like I can breathe for the first time in years. My phone had been ringing non-stop. Reporters, donors, board members, family, friends, everyone wanted answers. I turned it off. Where to? Geoffrey asked. The cemetery. I need to talk to Lance. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the headstones. I knelt beside Lance's grave, brushing fallen leaves from the marble. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure out the truth. I'm sorry your father died thinking he was a failure. I'm sorry our foundation was built on his pain. The wind rustled through the oak trees. For a moment, I could almost hear Lance's voice telling me I'd done the right thing. My phone buzzed. A text from Savannah. Turn on Channel 7 News now. I walked back to Geoffrey's car and asked him to turn on the radio. Federal agents arrested Reginald Wallace this afternoon on charges of embezzlement, fraud and conspiracy. His wife, Beatrice, was also taken into custody as an accessory. The couple's daughter, Maria Wallace, cooperated fully with authorities in exchange for immunity. Geoffrey turned it off. You sure you're ready for this? I'm sure. We drove to the foundation office. The building looked the same, but everything felt different. Savannah was waiting in the lobby with a stack of papers. The FBI released the accounts, she said. All $3 million is being held in escrow pending the court's decision on restitution. Good. What about the scholarship recipients? That's the interesting part. After the news broke, we got calls from 12 major donors offering to fund a new foundation. Clean money, no strings attached. 12? Including some people you've never met. Apparently, your speech at the Gala went viral. People are calling it the most honest thing they've ever heard from a non-profit leader. Jeffrey handed me his phone. The video had been viewed over 2 million times. The comments were brutal toward my parents, but surprisingly supportive of me. "There's more," Savannah continued. "3 of Wilfred's surviving children reached out. They want to meet with you." "They do?" "They said they never knew what really happened to their father. They thought he'd failed in business and died of shame. Learning the truth, it gave them closure." A knock on the office door interrupted us. A young woman in her 20s stood outside, holding a bouquet of flowers. "Ms. Wallace, I'm Jennifer. I received a scholarship from the foundation last year." I opened the door. "Jennifer, I'm so sorry about everything that's happened. I know this must be confusing. Actually, I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" "For telling the truth, for risking everything to do what was right. My scholarship money is helping me get through medical school, and knowing it came from someone who was willing to sacrifice everything for honesty, that means more than you know." She handed me the flowers. "These are from all 47 scholarship recipients. We took up a collection to start the new foundation. It's not much, only $3,000, but it's clean money, our money." I started crying. "You don't understand. The foundation might not survive this scandal." "The foundation will survive because you made sure it would. You chose truth over family, justice over comfort. That's the kind of leader we want to follow." More people were gathering outside the office. Donors, volunteers, community members. Some held signs reading "Truth Matters" and "Justice for Wilfred." "There's something else," Jeffrey said quietly. "Marcus and his associates were arrested, but they're cooperating fully. Turns out they weren't just criminals, they were Wilfred's former employees who'd been trying to clear his name for decades." "What about Tessa?" "She's in a real treatment facility now. Court-ordered, but she says she's grateful. She left you a message." He handed me a handwritten note. "Maria, I'm sorry for everything. You saved my life by refusing to enable me. I hope someday I can be as brave as you. Love, Tessa." Savannah opened the office door. "Maria, there are reporters here. They want to know about the new foundation." I looked at the crowd gathering outside, at the flowers from the scholarship recipients, at the note from my sister, at Jeffrey and Savannah, who'd stood by me when my own family wouldn't. "Tell them the truth," I said. "Tell them we're starting over. Clean slate, clean money, clean conscience." "What about your parents?" "What about them? They made their choices. Now they get to live with the consequences." "And you? What do you get to live with?" I thought about Lance, about the 47 young women whose futures were secure, about Wilfred's children finally knowing their father hadn't failed them. "I get to live with the truth, finally." The reporters were setting up cameras outside. In a few minutes I'd have to face them, answer their questions, explain how a foundation built on stolen money could become something honest and good. But first, I had one more call to make. "Hello, is this Wilfred's daughter Sarah? This is Maria Wallace. I think it's time we talked." As I dialed the number, I realised something had changed. The weight I'd been carrying for 3 years, the grief, the guilt, the sense that something was fundamentally wrong, was finally gone. I wasn't just Lance's widow anymore. I wasn't just the daughter of criminals or the sister of an addict. I was someone who'd chosen truth over comfort, justice over family loyalty, and the future over the past. And for the first time since Lance died, that felt like enough. The phone rang, and Sarah answered. "Hello?" "Hi, Sarah. I have some things to tell you about your father, and some things to make right." Outside, the cameras were rolling. The story was just beginning, but this time it would be the whole truth.